if you found him tonight, what then?
I remember walking up the street,
Would there be enough meaning?
counting off the numbers, knowing I was getting closer and closer, and my stomach getting tighter and tighter as I got nearer and nearer. And then I got to the door and I couldn't go in, so I kept walking. And that's something I never forgotten. With a name like Gay's the Word written over the door, lesbian and gay bookstore, it takes guts to walk in.
Of a love that's free, a time when dreams so long denied can flourish as we unveil the love we now must hide.
Gay's the Word came out of gay lib in the 70s and the emergence of gay bookstores in the States. The people who set up the shop were ballsy individuals. It was a very deliberate strategy on their part to choose a name, Gay's the Word. This was not about hiding away. And they had problems, getting a lease initially. So it was like, Gay's the Word? What's this going to be? This is a residential neighbourhood? Is this a sex shop? Because the notion of an ordinary bookstore that just happened to stock lesbian, gay and feminist books, was completely new.
For this bookstore to open in this country finally meant that people had the right to access their own ideas. It's also been very practically important in terms of advice, support, help for the gay community. To be able to come to a bookstore and have a book or a series of books available to you that make you feel less fraught, that make you feel less sort of alone, I think it's really a wonderful, important thing.
When it was founded back in 1979, half of it was a meeting space and the rest was books. Over the years that changed as more and more books became available and other publishing houses came into being.
Well, the shop was always seen from the very beginning not simply a bookshop, but as a community resource. Because we have to remember that 26 years ago, there was still a lot of anti-gay feeling.
And there was Gay's the Word as a kind of beacon, a lighthouse, if you like, circling round and saying, well, hang on a minute, we're here, we're queer, and we're staying. And that was, I think, fantastically culturally important to many people of my generation, and I think the generation that came before me.
I think this is the most wonderful resource for the lesbian and gay community. I think there is nowhere that you would get this much printed matter about our community, anyway. I know that the lesbian discussion group has been a lifeline for many women. Lots of people come when they're first coming out. It's a safe place.
Large objections.
There's no loud music. You can actually talk to people. And we sort of nurture people along.
I like the fact that a whole range of people use the bookstore from 16 to 90. So it's a reflection of the whole lesbian and gay community. We get lots of calls from parents, mums whose sons have just come out, and you may be the first other gay person that they've talked to. And sometimes it's just they want the book, but other times they're talking to you for 20 minutes. And it's really interesting.
Gay is good, gay is wonderful, gay people
I think it's difficult for people of my generation to really truly envisage what it used to be like to be a gay man or a lesbian in London or anywhere in the country, because things have changed. Things have really changed, and thankfully so.
We had to be secretive. Not everybody was brave about telling other people who they were, or even acknowledging themselves. It was a scary time. So it was very brave, I think, for the guys who opened this in the first place.
We provided lesbians and gay men with the information they needed about their own lives and about how to organize their lives and how to define their lives. And I think without that, life would be very, very much different for an awful lot of people.
In the early 90s, general bookstores started gay sections. And one part of me is very pleased they did, because it means if you're a young gay man or lesbian and you walk into a bookstore, you may see this section, you know, lesbian and gay, and there's a validation there. But obviously that affects our business. You can now get gay books everywhere, whereas when we started you couldn't.
People no longer physically have to go to Gay's the Word to buy the books. So in one sense, it is a very sad casualty of better times, and that's a terrible paradox.
I'm just trying to tidy up the bookstore because we've got a book event on tonight. It's Felice Picano. He wrote, his most famous book is like People in History, and he's just written a new book called Tales of a Distant Planet, which is like crime sci-fi. He's just like a really important gay author, and he's sort of, it's the first time he's in Europe to promote a book. He lives in LA, and he's just a really prolific, sort of like wonderful author for us to have at the bookstore for a book event. So yeah, that's why I'm a little bit manic.
Gay is the Word bookstore, which I've been familiar with for a very long time. When I was a small press publisher back in the 70s of the first gay press on the East Coast of America, probably the second one in existence, called Seahorse Press. We did a lot of business with Gay is the Word. I remember packing up and bringing to the post office books that 3 months or 4 months or 5 months later would find their way here. And we also had one of the most distinguishing moments of my career, thanks to Gay is the Word, when a book of mine, my first collection of short stories, this is my second, called Slashed to Ribbons in Defense of Love, when that was published in 1983, and it was shipped here, and it was stopped by the Queen's Custom House in London, and they thumbed through it very carefully and decided it was too obscene for British readers, and the shipment of books was actually burned on the docks of Liverpool. And that was really, you know, that's like a feather in my cap. I can't think of a nicer thing that could happen to me than to have my books burned on the docks of Liverpool.